Someone else asked about foxes, and it was so interesting. I actually remember, I can't remember what convention it was at, but someone came to my booth and said that they were about to do a panel on the significance of foxes in Japanese culture. And I couldn't make it to the panel, so they gave me the just the little pamphlet for it. And I just love I love so much how much people at conventions who are there to celebrate all of the things they love educate us on things, because there's so much cool stuff out there, and getting to be in a place where you are celebrating the things you love and being celebrated for loving the things you love is just such a beautiful environment.
Yeah,
it's one of the reasons I love conventions so much.
I know. I hope they'll come back. They will. It's going to take a year or two because conventions are sweat boxes full of petri dishes.
I do think they'll come back. It'll take some time, but they'll come back. Yes, Frankie Boy.
Oh, Frankie's here? Okay, cool. Now, Anjali, one last time, is there any way to raise the camera up slightly? Because I'm only getting...
Yes. It's so weird that you're only seeing half my head. Because,
let me see if I can lower you.
How about that?
Yeah, see, I can lower you a little bit.
Does that work out better? I mean, I don't mind cutting off my widow's peak.
Hey, it's nice you have a widow's peak. But that's actually usually a sign of a pretty strong head of hair that you have a little bit extra. You know, it comes down.
Oh, yeah. No, although ever since I started cosplaying a little bit, every time I put on a wig, I lose this section, like I lose this little piece, and it turns into a Superman curl. Like it gets ripped out, and it turns into like this tiny little...
Here is something I learned. And I'm married to a woman of color. She is, as she describes herself, Black and Latina and European. She doesn't say African American. She doesn't say Latinx. She's my age. She likes to use her terms. But we watched, and she has extremely curly hair. She had an afro when she was a kid. As she grew older, it got a little less curly, but it was still like fiercely curly. And so years ago, we watched the Chris Rock documentary, Good Hair Day. And
Is it all about your edges?
Well, no, it's just about actually black ladies' hair and how they're constantly buying extensions and hair pieces to augment their hair. And what is the fascination with having hair that doesn't look like their natural hair, their natural, beautiful hair? And I did not know this, but where almost all of the extensions they buy comes from India. Women in India apparently have the strongest heads of naturally smooth, shiny, healthy hair in the world because it's all coming from there.
I'm not going to lie. I'm very grateful for it.
Yeah.
I'm very, very grateful for it. I mean, we also have to deal with hair getting rid of hair in places that we don't want it. But, there's a small price to pay for a nice solid head of hair.
Yeah.
Nice, I'm happy about it.
Sure.
It makes me happy.
Jean says, Jean is Asian American, had the opposite issue. Hair was curly when you were a child, but it's gotten straighter over time. After my wife had 2 babies, her hair got straighter. Hormones.
Interesting. Hormones. Yeah, people have often asked me, will you ever cut your hair? And first of all, I'm like, no, because I'll lose my strength because it's like Hanson. I haven't had short hair since I was like 8. And I'm just a little nervous about what it would grow back as. So unless someone pays me a lot of money to do it for like a film role or something like that, like Princess Kambata in the first Star Trek when she shaved her head. I went back there back in the day.
You went way back.
That was some deep Star Trek with the Princess Kambata.
I saw that movie in the theater. I'm old.
We did too.
You did too?
Okay. Absolutely. Yeah.
Too bad about her.
I'm actually 110 years old.
Yeah, well,
I think I'm 114 according to Facebook. I can't remember anymore.
It might be. Hey, speaking of the internets and how they get things wrong, almost. I'm almost sorry that I stopped you. I shouldn't have because I could have perpetuated this. This would have been funny.
You guys, this would have been amazing. So I was all excited to promote that I was going to be on the stream with Chris. So I was putting together like some pictures and visuals and all the stuff to post today. And I sent him, thank God, the diptych, the little collage that I was making. And he was like, that's great, except that picture is not me. There's another ChrisEdgerly, and that's him.
Yeah. Yeah, and he spells it Ley, and I'm Ly, but he's British. He's younger than me. He's got a full head of hair, and
he's just a different dude.
Yeah, he's a different dude.
That's all he is. He's just a different dude. And I'm embarrassed too. But in fairness, if you Google ChrisEdgerly, there is at least one link that comes up with that guy attached to Apex Legends.
Yeah.
So I'm like, dude,
because somebody,
the internet is not a safe place to find facts.
No, a fan made a video of these are the voices of Apex Legends and these are the actors, and they would do the voice. They'd put the headshot up, and poor ChrisEdgerly over on the other side of the pond is probably, if he cares, is getting mistaken for a voice actor in this game. But I will issue this invitation, ChrisEdgerly with an E, if you're out there, come on the stream. You're welcome to, and we'll talk. We'll blow people's minds. You'll be my special guest. That would be very
cool.
Because
John Malkovich.
I looked him up to see how much overlap is there. He's an actor, but I don't know if he's still in acting at all. But he seems to be a perfectly, nice young fellow who did some work and seems like a charming guy. And okay, fine. I don't still know how people would confuse us. He is fair-skinned with sort of brownish, maybe reddish hair.
Well, in fairness, if you've never met one of you in person, like I have never met him. Although I have to say, like when I did get the right picture and see what you actually look like, you look like the love child of two dear actor friends. So that's why
I gotta hear.
So happy and warm and handsome. No, I don't know. I don't know if you would know them because, one of them you might know. So Jeremy Bobb, he was on, that show with Clive Owen, the Nick.
The Nick.
He was on the Nick, and he's been on a bunch of other things. I met him in the UK years ago when he was doing Richard III at the Old Vic, and with another friend. Mm-hmm. And then one of my best friends in the world, Mark Aidan Gray, who. He's obviously, this was many years ago, but is one of the first faces you see in The Matrix.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you remember when what's his nuts? Neo. When Neo goes, when Neo gets like a bunch of people come knocking on his door, and they're like this ragtag team of goth-looking people. My friend Mark is the redhead.
Oh, nice. Okay. Well.
So if the two of those two combined genes. It would look like a ChrisEdgerly.
Okay. Good to know.
This ChrisEdgerly.
Yeah, this iteration of ChrisEdgerly without the E. So I think I'm just going to issue it. If this makes its way to ChrisEdgerly out there in England, it's like, come on the stream. We'll chat.
Anything is possible thanks to the internet. I just had something extraordinary happen to me thanks to the internet, this story actually starts last November. So I'm a huge lover of Ariana Huffington. I've been watching her ever since the first time I saw her on Bill Maher. I believe that she's just like a lovely human being. She cares so much about so many people's well-being. So I'm at the airport on my way to Thanksgiving fun, and I see a wallet underneath the security belt, and I'm late for my flight, so I just grabbed the wallet and I run over to security, and I'm like, you guys, someone lost her I'm assuming it's a her because it's a lady's looking billfold, and someone lost her billfold, and I gotta run. Can you guys do something about this? Can you make an announcement? And they were like, yeah, absolutely, we'll handle it. And as I'm grabbing all my stuff off the belt, they say, passenger Ariana Huffington, we have your wallet at security. And I was like, I can't say. So I tweeted her and I said, hey, Ariana Huff, I don't know if this is actually you or if it's someone else, but if it is you, go to security Terminal 4. They've got your wallet. Have a great day. Thank you for whatever I said. And then didn't think about it. And it turned out that it was her. She had just left on a family vacation to Hawaii, which, like your Thanksgiving vacation, you want it to be relaxed. And she must have been so panicked. And she was so gracious about it. And she tweeted about it and she talked about it as her Thanksgiving miracle on all of her socials and stuff like that. So fast forward to now, I'm doing this series on Instagram called Awesome August, where I'm talking about some of my favorite things. And I talked about the book she sent me, which is her book Thrive, which is an incredible book that everybody should be reading right now. It's just a lovely balm for the soul. And I talked about it, and then she saw it on the internet last night, and she reposted it on her story, and she said, "Come write for me at Thrive."
Really?
Woo!
So you get to write for her?
I don't know if I get to. I mean, she just said that. I'd love for you to come write for us. So I'm like, yes, sure, any day of the week.
Yeah, you got to jump on that.
I know, right? So she may, I mean, I don't think, she doesn't seem like the kind of person who does that emptily. Like
Yeah, it didn't seem like she would be frivolous.
If you look at everything that she does. No, if you look at everything that she does, it's so geared towards people's well-being. And I just, yeah. So, I mean, her two big books, The Sleep Revolution and Thrive, are all about that, are about us, you know, taking care of ourselves in a world that increasingly doesn't want us to take care of ourselves.
Yeah, I mean, I have told people this on the stream. I haven't harped on it as much as I should, but especially in the first few months of me streaming, I would tell people to, when I finish the stream, this is pre-pandemic, I would say, okay, I'm done. Now make sure that you go outside today. Make sure that you hug somebody with their consent, that you make eye contact, that you talk to people, that you just be in the world, because screens are not enough. Now, unfortunately, screens are having to be a proxy for the foreseeable, for an indeterminate amount of time, but for a little while. But yes, we tend to think that the connections we're making virtually are the same as personal in-person connections, and they are not. They don't really feed you the same way. If it's the best you can do, then you got to do it. But in-person connections, being out and about, just being in nature, just being outside is very important, because our gadgets, which, you know, mine's never far, our gadgets have a way of owning us. We have to be very careful about that. Yeah,
very true. And especially now, and it obviously has been challenging for everybody to find ways to have that in-person connection. And particularly if you are immune compromised, or if you're living with a relative who you have to be very careful with. You know, I have been visiting my 81-year-old mom as of a couple of weeks ago. And so it's very important that I just do not go anywhere where there is any chance of me potentially putting her at risk. And even when I visit her, it's 6 feet away, masks, everything, like the whole wall of, we have at her house, there's a whole wall of like window doors that you can open. So we keep all those open. So we're practically outside with everything that we can do. But especially when you are in these circumstances these days, the combination, now we just have to separate. Well, either we have to be more creative about how we see people, right? One great way is go on a socially distanced hike or walk. Yeah. I've been doing that. You know, you're outside, you got your mask on, you're getting your blood pumping, you're moving out a little bit, but also remembering that you can get outside and have your me time, and you can have quality. If you're going to have screen time, have one-on-one screen time, like have a date with a friend. Yeah. Have an actual time where that's the only screen. That's a really I've been finding that has actually been nice. Oh yeah. And I'm actually seeing a lot of my friends more than I normally see them. Yeah, we're finding that people are getting in touch in ways they weren't used to, because it's what's available now. But you also find that, hey, I don't have to get in the car and fight traffic. I don't have to schedule so much of my day around this, because, you know, where we live, we're in LA. Getting from A to B in LA can be challenging. Always has been. It can be. Although it's a little bit less now. A little bit less. A little bit. At the top of quarantine, I was floored. It normally takes me about an hour and a half to 2 hours to get to my mom's house, and it took 45 minutes. And I was like, wow, this is zombie apocalypse material. Yeah, it is. It is. Now, to that point, you have done quite a bit of on-camera work, and the production on-camera stuff is basically nil at this point. I mean, I guess there might be a rogue production that is finding some far-off island where they can quarantine everyone for a couple of weeks before they start, but that's kind of what you have to do. Well, there are also just productions that are actually following the guidelines that have been set out by SAG-AFTRA, because there was what's called a white paper that was set out with a set of guidelines for safety. And the thing is, it's very, very expensive for productions to be able to do that. So some of the larger productions are able to do it, and some of the productions up in Canada have reached an agreement with Canadian, with the forces that be in Canada, So I know like a lot of Disney shows, like A Million Little Things and some other things like that are going out there. But here it has, it's very, very challenging, especially when there's not a lot of income coming in to that particular industry at the same time as they're going to have to shell out millions more in order to be able to keep people safe. But yeah, there are also some productions, like all of Tyler Perry's stuff is being done in Atlanta on his compound. So everybody's quarantining there. It's pretty remarkable. And there are people shooting, I think there's big movies are shooting in the UK and Australia and stuff. So it's happening, much like the theater, which, it withstood the fall of the Roman Empire. We are going to survive this in the theater, even though it has shut down, where people are finding creative and safe ways to do it. It's not like I have to do this and therefore screw my safety. No, people are being smart and being like, I want to do this and I don't want to die. So let's combine those two things and figure out a way to make it happen. So it's definitely still happening.
I mean, there's certainly bending over backwards to find ways to keep sports going. I would love to see a theater just take its roof off and say, fine, we're an amphitheater now. And we're an outdoor amphitheater. Or just find an outside space. And here's how we're going to seat people. And we're going to do it the way the Greeks used to do it, outside.
There are plenty of theaters that are trying to do that. The fear is more about the liability to their patrons. Than it is anything else, because you cannot control in an amphitheater. Now think about the Public Theater in New York, which is one of the most respected theaters in the world. It's free theater for all in New York. They do 3 productions every year, and you cannot control what people decide to do and how seriously they decide to take their safety once they have been allowed into that amphitheater. And as we have seen all over the country, while there are many demographics that are taking it very seriously, there are others that are not. And so one has to be careful. If it's just about the actors, you can control it. Similarly to the live music industry, which is very near and dear to my heart, not just because I freaking love live music, but because my husband is like, his band is a touring band. They've been touring the world for 10 years. And so, in fact, here they are, right here. Ta-da!
What's their name? What's the name? We'll give them a shout out.
Vintage Trouble. This is a chance to look at my chest, everyone. Vintage Trouble is the name of the band, and they are incredible. In fact, I don't know if you can grab the link, but if you can grab the link to their YouTube of them on Letterman, that's a great way for people to go down the rabbit hole. They're an incredible band, and I don't just say this because I'm married to all of them. I knew them before that, and it's sort of like if Otis Redding fronted an early Led Zeppelin.
Really?
So classic,
that's an interesting
classic,
mix.
gritty, super incredible dance music. It's really good dance music.
Okay.
Really, really good. Really, really good dance music. In fact, I don't remember. There was a long period of time. I was a dancer for a while when I was much younger, and then there was a long period of time where I just didn't dance. For a lot of reasons, and I didn't feel as comfortable and free and excited about dancing until my first Vintage Trouble concert.
Really?
Yeah. And all of a sudden, everything came back, and I was like, "This is what I've been missing in my life. Is this kind of party."
Right. Now, when you say you were a dancer when you were younger professionally, or is just you were a person who just danced whenever she felt like it?
No. I was when I went to college for theater, but the dance program sort of decided that I was a dancer when I went to dance classes. And I was like, well, okay, if you say so.
Right.
It's kind of been a lot of my life has been just saying yes to things that people say I'm good at. And I'm like, if you say so, I don't know if I'm really, like, I don't think I'm good at it, but if you say so. So in addition to doing my theater degree and my music theater certificate, I was dancing 6 hours a day, 3 hours a day in classes, and then 3 hours of rehearsal to dance in performances. And so my last performance was at the Kennedy Center. And then
really,
with the Jump Rhythm Jazz Project. And then I, in a rehearsal, busted my knee. It was kind of a brutal moment. Busted my knee bent sideways, and that was that. And I was out. But the beautiful story about that is that I never really intended to be a dancer. I sort of went into it because people told me you should do this thing that you're good at.
Right.
And once I had that knee injury, it kind of put me back on the course to what I had originally wanted to do.
Uh-huh.
And I loved being physical. I loved having that outlet.
Right.
And I felt free expressing myself physically, but I had never intended to be a professional dancer as like, that's my thing.
Uh-huh.
And so it sort of freed me from feeling like I had to do that. And my first audition was for when I finally could like walk and bend my knee functionally again, was for a director named Mary Zimmerman,
uh-huh.
who I went on to be a dear friend, and we did 18 productions together, and it just got me right back on the track of acting. My first Broadway show was with her. It's so it just goes to show you that sometimes the universe what it looks like is an awful thing that is happening in the moment. When you look back, you can give it meaning. And you need a minute for that perspective, and you need to trust that you will have it eventually. But as long as you just stay the course and don't lament what you don't have, you might find that you have something better down the line.
Yeah. Speaking philosophically, this is a very interesting topic for me too. And it is all perspective. There are people who believe that everything happens for a reason. And then there are people who believe that things are completely random and chaotic, but you can attach meaning to everything that happens and make it suit you. And
that's a little more where I come from.
That's where I come from as well, because there's no way I can empirically prove everything happens for a reason. Things are just utterly random. However, you can assemble them into a story, into a narrative for your life that will work perfectly for you and give you a sense of purpose and meaning in your own life. Yeah. And that's how I like to approach it.
Mine falls somewhere in between those two. Like, I don't think it's completely random. I do think that there is some force greater than us. You can call it God, you can call it the universe, you can call it cheddar cheese. I don't really care. But I do believe that there is some force bigger than us, that where energies align and where storylines align. You know, if you look at quantum physics, you think about how all of these realities are possible. It's the storyline we're in. Sci-fi deals with that all the time, right?
Yeah.
But I like to say it's not everything happens for a reason that I don't know and someone else is determining it. I'm too much of a control freak for that. And frankly, I'm not even a control freak. I enjoy the responsibility and the power of choosing my own story, of choosing my own narrative, right? And I think, and especially with, you look at, well, let me finish this thought and then move on to that one. And so for me, it's more like, I'm going to give everything a reason. I'm going to find, like, I don't see it now, but I know it's going to happen. I made this choice. Why is it the right choice? Because it's the choice I made. Not looking back, this is the wrong choice, and all of these what if, what could have been, what should have been. Diving into Apex and other, game stories and sci-fi stories and everything. It's one of the things that I love so much about playing these super cool characters with these incredible backgrounds that we get to play, is that all of us in the real world are a product, not just of our experiences, but of what we do with them.
Yeah.
What we do with them. And you can see so clearly in Apex, you can see it in other properties, you can see it. You can see so clearly, some people go to the light and some people go to the dark. Mm-hmm. And it really is, what do you do with it? What do you do with what you've got? What do you do with what you've been given? Are you going to go down the revenge path, or are you going to go down I'm going to somehow use this as inspiration to be a force of good in the world? What are you going to do?
Well, I actually worked with a cognitive therapist years ago. I've talked about this on stream before. And the one thing he taught me, I did it for a few years, and then he says, all right, you're graduated, you're gone, because that's how it works. They don't want to see you forever. They teach you a skill set. The skill set is a lot about what you talked about, and it's the best form of philosophy and religion I can find, and that is that it's all a riff on the Serenity Prayer. And I'm like you. I actually do believe that there's something greater than all of us. I could not put a name on it. I don't think it intervenes on our behalf in any way that we could possibly determine. It's too great. So the best I could muster up is some sort of weak deism, but really I'm more of an agnostic. So I would say you focus on what you can control. You work on being strong enough to handle the things you can control, and you work on being chill enough to let go of the things you can't. And
Right.
that's the best philosophy I've ever discovered. I've discovered nothing that works better than that for me. But I do have a question for you. Knock, knock.
Yes.
Knock, knock.
Who's there? Who's there?
Control freak.
Control
Okay, now you
freak.
say control freak who?
That's like my favorite. Oh my God, I was crying laughing so much when my nephew did this to me, and he was like 5. He said, okay, knock, knock.
Who's there?
Interrupting cow.
Interrupting cow.
No!
Yeah.
I don't know why I thought that was maybe coming out of a 5-year-old's mouth. It's cuter. Someone asked, am I Indian and where I am from? Yes, I am Indian. I'm Indian American. My parents were from Calcutta and Ahmedabad and raised in Bombay, now Mumbai. Mm-hmm. And then they came over. They went to medical school in India, where they met doing a play. So how about that? In their copious free time, they did a play together.
Medical school and the arts. That's like a perfect person. You know, that's the way I see it.
The two of them are pretty
science and creativity.
Pretty darn extraordinary people. I really lucked out in the family department. And then they came over to the States and had me and my brother here. So Indian American. That is my background.
Now, was there? We always talk about. I always believe. I've told my wife this, that we are a nation of immigrants, and my wife came from Venezuela. She taught herself the language. She got any job she could find, and sometimes she would bullshit her way through the job interview and then figure out the job once she got it. She brought her family here, and then she got married and divorced because she married a Yutz, and then found out, oh, this guy's a moron, and moved on, and basically created herself here. I mean, she always knew who she was, but she knew that this was the place you come to do it. And she's brought echoes of her culture here, and she has embraced the other culture that is here as much as she can. And I always tell her, you're more American than anyone I've ever met, because you embody those values.
You chose it.
Now,
you chose it.
Yes, exactly. So you have created your life here, and you bring parts of the rest of the world here, and you are working to make yourself the best version of yourself possible. That is the promise of what America is. That's what I believe. Do your parents are they like, I notice a lot of immigrants that come here end up being super patriotic, just not in the way that a lot of people with red hats would think you're supposed to be patriotic.
Right.
But in my opinion, they're extremely patriotic. And I don't know if I don't know how your parents feel about this country now as opposed to when they moved here, what culture they brought with them, what they wanted to assimilate. You know, I always find this fascinating.
Sure. Well, my father is sadly no longer with us. Okay. He passed at the beginning of 2017. But he was easily one of the most well-read on civics, on politics, on history, like you name it, human beings that I have ever met. He loved James Michener. He loved Carl Sagan. He loved, he just devoured things.
Carl.
So you could tell anytime you spoke with him, like there was a love of the history and a love of the story and everything. And even when we would talk politics, this is what I think was so particularly American about them. And it's something that I don't think we have a lot of in today's day and age. And I didn't realize that this was unusual until I met my husband. He was like, your family is unlike any family I've ever met. Is there was every time we would sit at the dinner table and we would talk about politics or current events, there was respectful debate. We disagreed, and we brought up facts, and we kids ran to the encyclopedia to look things up, and because my parents were doctors in the 80s, so obviously they had a different mindset than necessarily like young kids being like a whole different feeling, and until the day since he passed right when I guess this administration came in, right around
Inauguration Day, I guess. Yeah.
Well, it was actually January 1st. So it was even before that.
Oh wow.
Okay. Or was it January 1st? Yes, it was January 1st. I take that back. January 2nd, because we flew back on January 1st. sorry, I totally got distracted trying to figure out facts. But so that sense, that ability to have that kind of conversation that you don't see people able to do, and it makes me so sad, because not just do we not see it in terms of our public figures between the two parties, it happens within the parties. In fact, the round table, I don't know if you watched the DNC last night, but there was the little round table segment of all the former candidates from this election was so awesome.
It was very respectful.
Can we all just do this? Can we all just hang out and do this and solve problems like this? But so between the two parties, we don't have that. But also in families, I feel like we don't have that. People are so quick, and online and everywhere else, people are so quick to just be like, screw you, you're awful, cancel.
Yeah.
And that doesn't help anyone. Doesn't help anyone feel better, doesn't help the situation get better, doesn't help us solve problems, because no one can offer up differing ideas that might actually be useful.
Right.
It's rough.
There's a neuroscientist I like a lot. He's also a philosopher, Sam Harris. And I have a feeling your dad would have appreciated Sam, even if he wouldn't have always agreed with him. Sam is the most preternaturally chill human being I've ever come across. I actually met him once. And he's exactly the same way in person. He says, I just don't seem to have the gear where I get really upset or excited about things. Now, he has studied meditation for decades. He even taught jiu-jitsu in college as a student. He's got a black belt, I think, in Brazilian jiu-jitsu. And he's a neuroscientist, published author. Wow. And he says, and I agree with this, he says, we only have two ways to settle differences: conversation and violence. That's literally it. If you're not talking it out, the only other way you have to settle a disagreement is violence. People can say, oh, well, you can use sanctions and this and that. Sanctions are usually something imposed by force at the end of it.
They're kind of a combination of the two. They're a conversation that says, listen, this is not okay. And there is something that is leaning towards the possibility of violence.
He says, you obviously don't want to choose violence to settle a dispute. You want to choose conversation. You either learn how to...
Hang on just a second. Before we go, one of your sweet followers is leaving.
Oh, who's
they are asking the Top Cone Bone 69 is leaving and needs a question answered.
Oh, well, they're going to whisper it.
Very good.
No, they're going to whisper it so it'll get answered later.
Okay, I'm sorry. I was trying to help. I'm trying to help.
Okay, well, she can answer it right now there at Top Cone.
Because I totally interrupted you in the middle of a thought.
No, it's okay. The thought is basically that. That is, if you don't learn how to talk it out with Socratic discourse, answering and asking questions, and thereby each time the ball crosses the net, there's a little bit more information and understanding and empathy attached to it. So that after a while you may say, I don't think we're going to be able to agree on this. However, I now understand your point of view more, so I will vilify you less. And that is not easy to do online, because people find that they have fake courage behind a keyboard, and they say things that you wouldn't say to somebody's face.
Preach.
Yeah.
That's one of my most frustrating things that I find. And it happens to us. And it happens to me, and it happened to me when I first started really being more active online, when I would see something and I would just respond and be like, hey, I'm right here, and I've seen your comment. You want to have a conversation about this? And more often than not, people are like, oh, I didn't think that you were going to read it, because I didn't think that you would see this. I'm like, no, there is another human being on the other end of this conversation.
Yeah.
So let's have a conversation about it.
Yeah,
it's totally fine if you want to voice your opinion about how insert not nice thing here.
Right.
Let's talk about it. But if you're just saying that for some reason because you think you have armor because you're behind the safety of your keyboard and you could be mean to someone, let's nip that in the bud.
Yeah.
Because that's not going to do you any good, and that's not going to do me any good, and it's certainly not going to do anyone else.
Yeah. I've dropped the ball a little bit on this, but the intention is still there. I'm gonna have to get on it. But I bought 2 books on manners before my children were born, And
Oh, wow.
I'm a very big believer in manners. And a lot of people think, oh, manners means you know what fork to use and you know how to bow and curtsy. Manners basically means being honest, being respectful, and being considerate of other people, no matter what the situation is. It is not putting on airs. So when you know how to do that, manners, I've always said, are a lubricant for society because they allow people to move amidst each other without creating friction. And when you have friction, you get sparks and then you get a fire and the engine breaks down. That lubricant is what keeps everything oiled. It allows people to pass each other daily and show consideration, respect, and honesty. And when you show those things, you tend to get them back. You know, you tend to get them from other people. And I, as a rule, I've learned this through practice and just through reading up on this, is that let's say you're married or you're in a relationship, as far as talking to people of the opposite sex or someone that you might normally have a romantic inclination towards when you're in a relationship, the rule is never say or do anything to that stranger that you would not do with your partner right there in the room. That's just respect.
Oh, amen.
Amen to that.
Yeah.
And as far as overall manners go, never say or do anything to somebody over the internet that you would not do or say right in front of them. If you can follow those rules, then you're going to have a much easier time in life and in your relationships. So,
it's so true. And also, going back to Sam Harris, who sounds like an extraordinary individual, so many of these people who you look at or who one looks at and says, oh my God, they do so many things. They're so good at so many things. I think part of the reason is because they don't spend so much of their psychic energy on stupid shit.
well, yeah.
You know, they don't spend so much of their psychic energy. They certainly don't spend their psychic energy getting worked up over trolls. They don't spend it creating conflict where there doesn't need to be conflict. They have their egos in check enough to know, okay, am I having this big feeling reaction for an important reason where it's telling me something I need to know, or is this just a feeling? Can I work through this on my own and use this energy for something else?
Yeah.
And it is very hard, and it is just part of the growing up process and the maturing process that you start to figure out more and more what that stupid stuff is. You know, it might be what's stupid to me might not be stupid to someone else. But figuring out what really matters to you so that you can take all of that psychic energy and use it for something that you feel like is worthwhile. Whether it's, I'm not going to get stressed out about these trolls on the internet because I have my family that I want to spend time with and my friends that I want to invest in. Whether it's, I'm not going to get worked up over not getting this job, not getting into this university. No, I'm not going to do that because I'm going to focus on the goal of solving this problem. Whatever it is, I think everybody that I really admire in the world, I just look at them and I'm like, you're probably spending a little less psychic energy on stupid stuff than I am.
It's a learned skill. I will say about Sam Harris, I like him. I don't think I would agree with every take he has. He is left of center, and so am I. But he has made a lot of enemies on the left because he doesn't go as far left as they would like, or to some people, he's too far right. And so he's polarizing in that way because, but that's just, my whole point is that he will give you a take and you may virulently disagree with it, but he will give you his thought process behind it. And so that's all I ask for.
And that's all. Right. Exactly. And and again, I know it's so funny. I said the one thing I didn't want to talk about was politics. And obviously I want to talk about politics because you can't these days. You sort of can't. This is a little bit like the 60s. When there's no, where'd you go? My mail decided to pop up in front of your face. I don't really know why that happened.
Well, it's okay. I'm still here.
You're still here, right?
I'm still here.
There you are. My computer is as old as time, so it decides it's got a demon inside it that's trying to get out. It's like Alien. So what was I saying?
Well, sometimes you want to engage in a political discussion, but it's a powder keg these days. It's not unlike the 60s. No. Things are popping.
But it is not. But it is not unlike the 60s in that it's all so intertwined now. There's sort of no way not to talk about, not for it to have some place in every conversation. But it is precisely that, the ability of someone to say, I'm going to give you my thought process in a coherent and respectful way, and you can take it or leave it.
Right.
That right there, that's theoretically what politics is supposed to be, because ultimately, in the long run, our government is theoretically supposed to be solving some problems.
Yeah.
And so we just have lost the ability to have that respectful discourse in so many circumstances. And I'm still like, I'm clinging tenaciously to my, like, no, this is possible, and we're going to keep doing this. And I will keep doing this on the internet as long as I have the energy to do it, because I think there is an entire generation of people, and I don't just mean in terms of age, I just mean in terms of what world they associate with, because there are plenty of people in their 40s and 50s and 60s right now that are acting like 10-year-olds, and there are plenty of 10-year-olds that are wiser than the 60-year-olds. So I think that there is it's learned behavior, and the more you see of one or the other, the more you're probably going to lean into.
Yeah, it takes a long time to learn the habit of being uncomfortable with different ideas. Christopher Hitchens, another very polarizing figure, may he rest in peace, who I really admired and loved to read his writing, and I didn't always agree with him either. But he said the measure of a first-class intellect is the ability to handle two opposing ideas in their mind at the same time. The ability to deal with cognitive dissonance. There are a lot of things that exist simultaneously in the world that don't seem to make sense, but they are both true. And can you hold them in your mind and be okay with that? Can you accept that life, I like to say this too, life is beautiful, terrible, warm, and cruel. I can give you reasons to be hopeful for the future and cynical. You have to be able to deal with that. Most people, and this is what I learned from the cognitive therapist, he said 90% of the people out there want it easy. They just want things to be easy. They have other things on their mind.
A good life is full of so many challenges.
Yeah.
And if you can really, like, I honestly, I'm going to be completely frank here. I don't feel like I certainly don't have everything figured out, but I don't think I even figured out how to have happiness, genuine, like, happiness in my life until maybe just a few years ago.
Oh, yeah.
And part of it is accepting both the power and the responsibility for you choosing your own narrative.
Yeah, I struggle with that.
And that includes accepting that, yes, of course, awful things are going to happen in the world. Terrible things are going to happen in our personal lives. Like, all these things are going to happen. That is part of life, but you get to choose what you do with it. And I think I was really afraid of being responsible for that. I just wanted anyone and everyone else to be, whether it was my career, I felt like it was outside of me, and kind of like everything that was good that was happening was not my doing. Everything that was bad was happening, must be my fault. Like, everything was happening to me. It's all happening to me, and I have no power. And here I am. Oh, woe is me. And, oh, please let me find the right man so that I can be happy. And, oh, please let me do it. It was so sad, because we all you have to do is, like, get behind the driver's seat and know that it's safe. It's safe. Like, horrible things are going to happen.
Yeah.
So yes, but you are in charge. You are the driver.
Well, this is what terrifies most people, and it terrified me. It threw me into an existential crisis until I got it all worked out. But it was, as he told me, he said, I used to call him my wise friend, because a lot of people freak out when they hear that you did therapy. And now I don't have as much of a issue with talking about it, because people are more open about it. But what he told me was, he says, you have a problem with this, the fact that life does that. It goes up and down and up and down. He says, but that is life. That is the way it works. And he says, your life will change when you realize that bad things happen, and yet you still will be able to handle it and create positive experiences and emotions for yourself, not based on anything out of your control. So I'm teaching you how to use your resources to make yourself feel better anytime anything goes wrong, And as soon as you grow enough confidence in your ability to do that, your life will change, because then it won't bother you that bad shit occasionally comes and lands on you.
Yeah.
Once you accept that you have the power to change it, you will be better with the uncertain. And that's pretty much it.
Jump on that, because that is brilliant. And a corollary of that is to not be afraid of experiencing those bad feelings, because they don't own you.
Yeah.
So as actors, for me, that realization also made a huge difference in my ability to perform better. Mm-hmm. Because I used to think that my feelings would overtake me, and I wasn't able to either come back from bad ones, or in my life, I wouldn't be, if some big feeling happened, I wouldn't be able, it was in charge. Mm-hmm. And the more I realized, no, like they're feelings, they're not a dictator. Mm-hmm. You can so feel them. If you want to, if you have a bad feeling and you kind of want to root around in your brain and your heart and figure out if, let me do a little bit of exploring and see if something important is coming here. It's safe to do that, because that feeling will pass. It's only when you wine and dine it and take it out to dinner and completely like keep going and like lean into that and fall down that rabbit hole that you think that you can't pull out of that feeling. It's really a lovely thing. I want to I just saw something in the feed, and I kind of want to go back to not to politics, but to talking about politics. Because I too, the Candy Marwal mentioned, I normally don't like talking about politics,
but this is
chill. Actually a soothing
conversation.
Yeah. So I have historically, other than the dinner table with my parents, which was a unique location, I have historically like run screaming from talking politics. Yeah. Not just because it wasn't polite or whatever, but because I was like, it's icky. I don't want to deal with it. It's gross. And I understand that a lot about what we call politics in the world is icky and gross, and needs to be like peeled away from conversations. So what I think is that we are at this incredible inflection point and reflection point in history right now, where we can look at it and we can be like, okay, there's the politics of electing people. There's the politics of this candidate, that candidate, this party, that candidate. But there is the politics of people talking about policy. And those policies affect us all day to day. Mm-hmm. And so there is sort of I have more of a desire now to talk about it in a productive way than I ever have. Yeah. And to talk with people who aren't freaking out about what's going on and screaming, the sky is falling, the sky is falling, the sky is falling, but instead saying, okay, I know an earthquake might happen, so let me get an earthquake preparedness kit. Mm-hmm. Or I talking about all the ways that we might be able to make a difference, whether locally, whether globally, whether within our own home, whether within our own family, just something that makes us feel more like we have agency in the world. Yeah. Because that right there, and I do think that that now is very important. I do think it's important. It's not, you don't have to sit there and watch all the conventions and watch the news 24. Please don't watch the news 24 hours a day.
It's not a good
idea. I know too many people who watch too much news. I can't do it. It's like watching a disaster film. Well, 24 hours. It's a bad idea.
I think you watch news 24/7 and you feel like you've become informed. However, the way that news works now, and I have a journalism degree, so I have a dog in this fight. My journalism degree is from 1991, when the media landscape was, forget about it being different. There was no media landscape compared to today. It was just this smooth, non-reflective surface where light disappeared. Now it is so bumpy and dotted with different factions and niches and interest groups and AI. So an algorithm detects what media you're consuming, and it gives you more of it, and it suggests other ones. And so you don't know that you have a bias, but you're a human being, so naturally you do. You gravitate towards certain kinds of news because it either tells you something that scares you, because the lizard brain tells us, oh, react to the fear.
I gotta know, yeah.
Or because it confirms something you already believe to be true. So
Yep.
once you select, you have entered a bubble and you don't even know it, because the AI will begin to feed you more of that. Before you know it, you're spending all your time getting the same narrative in your news. And now you think you're informed, but you're actually only getting one side of the issue, which, if you think about this Socratically, follow this logically, means we have 300 million people that are walking around with slightly different versions of reality in their heads. And when it's come time to come together and have a discussion about things, we find that sometimes we're talking past each other because we don't even agree on reality. So if a person says, no, the sky is not blue, it's aqua, and another person says, it's not aqua, it's mauve, and next thing you know says, there is no sky. What are you talking about? That's just what they want you to think. How can you have that conversation?
Right. On the flip side, though, what I do think is a good thing to pull from this glut, like this overwhelm of what's happening, is that now we are all responsible for being our own curators and for really doing a little bit more looking to figure out what facts what we trust.
You have
what
to
are
leave your
outlets
bubble.
we trust.
Yeah, you have to be willing to leave your bubble.
Not only do you have to leave your bubble, you have to be responsible. You have to be responsible for what you're taking in. The same way, a parent wouldn't let their kid eat Fruit Loops 24 hours a day.
Yeah.
We have to be our own parent with the news. We have to be our own parent with what we take in on social media. We have to be our own. We have to be careful about what we put into our system.
Yeah.
And that is it. Yes, it is another thing, and it's another thing that you have to do. And but ultimately, the reward is that, once again, you get to be the driver of your own car. You get to be the person who says, I am not going to let someone else determine how I feel about the world. I'm going to make sure that I trust my news sources. I'm going to make sure that I get multiple news sources. I'm going to make sure I don't overwhelm myself so I can't handle emergencies. Because let me tell you something. I'm the girl who runs to the car wreck to make sure people are okay.
Right.
That's always been who I am. And in the world as it is today, if I'm constantly seeing car wreck on the news, I'm going to lose my mind.
Yeah.
So that's one more of the reasons why I'm very, 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 very careful about, I take my 5 minutes from NPR to get the headlines. And if I want to dive deeper, I will choose my own outlets. And I do encourage anyone who is trying to figure out where they can get information, or where they can even learn about how this crazy pants system that we have works. There are two places, and now I'm blanking on Chris Evans' one because it's a really good one, but I'm blanking on the name of it. Shoot. But nerdsvote.com is a wonderful place just to find out about voting. Nonpartisan. They will break it down for you so that you can figure out what you need to do, where you need to go, how you need to make your voice heard. Bam, done. They're awesome. They also have a lot of really great merch. I love the tank tops that I got from them. And then Chris Evans, you guys can look it up. He was just on Bill Maher talking about this. Chris Evans actually has an organization that's all about just teaching us all how the system works in a very easy way. And you're learning it from Captain America, you guys.
Yeah, he's Captain America.
How can it be? He's actually a brilliant and lovely human being.
Yes.
And Booty Farts, what was the website? Nerdsvote.com.
Yeah, nerdsvote, nerds plural vote.com. Yeah.
Yeah, it's JP Karliak and Courtney Taylor. Our girl Courtney Taylor, another killer voice actress, but she is also a very active activist. And that is, and so those are two places that you can go. Someone can find the Chris Evans thing for us, I'm sure. Because Chris Evans is not that hard to find on the internet.
Well, I tell you what, since you have a hard out in about 20 or 30 minutes, we can...
You know what, I'm having so much fun.
Yeah, I know. Well, this is what happens with my interviews. They always tell me later, that wasn't like an interview. It's like, well, technically it's not. I just don't know what else to call it. It's a hang. So we end up talking about everything, But we can talk about some Apex, because I know that a lot of people want to hear about Rampart and all that, and
sure. Ask questions away.
Yeah,
and I have lodged my request to push a little bit.
Okay. Yeah. And on top of that, I usually like to ask, how did you come about playing Rampart? I went through one audition from home, and then I went through a callback, but that was season 0. That was, Pathfinder's one of the original characters. In your case, I'm finding, I don't know about your case, but in some of the later characters, usually it's one audition and done. They know exactly what they're looking for. So with you, what was the experience?
So I had one audition from home that I sent in, and then I went in for a callback in studio.
Okay.
And Eric Kraber was there, who I just...
Kraber's awesome.
Oh, God, he's so cool. And we just kind of did what we ended up doing in the sessions. We just kind of partied.
Mm-hmm.
I put on a rock and roll t-shirt because I felt like she was kind of rock and roll.
Right.
And I recorded all of my sessions with either a Prince shirt or a Billy Idol shirt on.
That's awesome.
And that was like my go-to. I was like, absolutely, I'm going to be wearing my black sneaks. I'm going to be wearing comfortable jeans or pants or pants. I'm going to be channeling either the purple one, the great one, or a little Billy Idol.
My wife is right there with you. She and I both think Prince is about the greatest thing ever. Yeah, he's awesome.
My husband could teach a doctorate course on this guy. You could say, what did he have for breakfast on July 7th, 1982? And he could tell you. And so I have him to thank for the deep dive into Prince, and also for the fact that I went really out of my way to be able to see him live when he did his residency at the Forum. And it was the last show, and I was flying back from the UK that day, and it was going to be the last show. And so I put out on the internet, I paid a ridiculous amount of money for tickets, and I put out on the internet, whoever picks me up from the airport gets to be my +1. And we went straight from the airport to the Prince show.
That's awesome.
That's how we made it. And it was epic.
I'm sure.
Epic.
I never got to see Prince live. I regret that. It's just one of those things I missed.
The good news is there's so much incredible stuff out there that has been filmed.
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
Oh, my God. So good.
So Rampart is, how much of you is Rampart? How much of Rampart is you? This is the eternal question.
Yeah, I will say she does have my little crooked smile thing that I have, which I hate on my own face, and I love so much on hers that now I'm starting to like it on my own face.
Well, that's good.
Because I have this little bit of a thing that happens, and now everyone else is going to notice it because I pointed it out. I'm very happy that she made me like my face. But that's such a good question. I feel like there's probably a lot of me in her, except for the fact that I'm not quite as mean. There's so many things. There's so many voice lines that I just would never say in real life. Like they're so mean. And it's similar to Symmetra. Symmetra is a queen of shade, and there are things she says where I'm like, oh, that was a very elegant way to say something really awful. So I will never say that. I will never say that in real life. I think the biggest part of me that I threw into Rampart was this kind of like, come on, brah, that kind of like, let's just do it. Come on, let's be scrappy little people.
Right.
I super dig that about her. I super dig that about her. And that, again, much like we talked about, she has taken her experiences and just been like, all right, you want to keep knocking me down? I will keep getting the F back up. And that's been her story since she found her way to building her own shop, to it getting burned down, to all the other things that happened.
And
so I think there's a little more of her than me than I probably want to admit, because she is so mean. But I do have that like snarky side. I definitely have that. I super have that snarky side. I just don't let it out much in public, which is why it was so much fun to just go full bore on that stuff.
Yeah,
and the fact that they wanted more and more of it made me just very happy.
Well, that's the thing about the recording sessions is I think they're taking notes when we're not aware. I think that the little things we do work their way into the animation occasionally. And absolutely. I know that, like, because I say a lot of times when I'm getting ready, when I was like getting ready for a line, I would say right. And now
I do that. I do that in life, and that's in a lot too. And I do that in life too. I'm like, okay, you're right. right? What's next?
Right.
Or okay, what are we doing now? Like, so that I love that they let me do that.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I dance around a lot. And so a lot of the stuff that she was doing, like when she's like doing this, I don't know if they caught me doing that I don't know if that was them or if that was me. I honestly don't know, because I danced around the studio a lot, much to the
the sound
much
engineer.
to the chagrin. Yeah. Poor Butch was like, oh, okay. I mean, I know how to stay, keep this.
Yeah, you know your mic technique.
This part of me is all over the place, doing all sorts of crazy business.
Right.
So yeah.
How much did they discuss? I mean, obviously she's Indian or South Asian.
Yeah.
How much?
Yes, she is Indian.
Yeah. Now that's a very large part of her personality, it seems. Yeah. Now, how much of that was discussed, and how much of that did they say, look, we're not experts. We know that we wanted her to be sort of this persona. Bring as much of you and your experience of that to the table. I mean, how much of a give and take was there on that? Because Apex is Apex bends over backwards to be as diverse as they can and inclusive as they can. So this is a thing with them. This is something very important.
Well, I also love how specific they were with it, because let's face it, first of all, this is a game set 700 years in the future on like an alternate planet and all of that stuff. So it's in space. They could just throw it all they could just be like, screw it all. We can do whatever we want.
Right.
But they are still attempting to say, okay, yeah, it's 700 years in the future, but this is a reference point for those of you in the current day in our reality. It's just a reference point. Right. And so in her background, the reference point is that she's Indian, but she moved to the UK. So she definitely, and then that's kind of where she built herself as an adult.
Okay.
So there is a lot, when I first read her, they said British Indian in the audition. And I'm 99% sure it said British Indian in the audition. And so many of the lines are Cockney slang and very, very Brit. So I did two versions. I did one with just a Cockney accent, and I did one with a more Indian Cockney accent, the combination of the two. And the decision was, because she's from India and then she moved there, we would lean into that one a little bit more. And the cool thing about that is you get both cultures.
Yes.
You get a little bit of both. So I know there are some people who are like, oh, I wish she had a Brummie accent. Oh, it doesn't make sense. If she's British Indian, why does she have that thick accent? I'm like, look, there are people from all walks of life that have all different accents. My mother has been here for, I don't know, 50 years. My mother has been here, and she still has her Indian accent.
Really?
So yeah, absolutely. Super has her Indian accent. And so but her vocabulary is very American. The way she speaks. And so I feel like, again, with Rampart, that's kind of what happened. That her homeland accent stuck a little bit, but the way she speaks and the rhythms and the choice of slang and the choice of all of those things, that was a product of the environment she became her in.
One thing from a technical standpoint I've noticed, and my uncle, who's a psychologist, and he went to Ivy League schools, he's hung out with blue bloods, erudite people, and he told me the best English you're ever going to hear spoken is people who are Indian, educated in India and in England. He says and I told Zara Fuzzle this too.
It's beautiful.
I know.
It's beautiful. It's so elegant. It's so elegant. And I'm very grateful, because a lot of my work on TV and in film and in voiceover has been stuff where I've been able to use that accent. And it's delicious.
Yeah.
It's delicious. It feels, it's smooth, and it's smart, and it's precise. And the word choices are precise.
And even when there's an accent, I notice, I think Dev Patel is his name, the actor. Who I like a lot. I have not seen everything he's done, but obviously we all know him from Slumdog Millionaire. But when he did, I think it was...
He did Lion. He did the Newsroom. He did that great movie with Jeremy Irons. He has grown, he has really...
There was something he did, because I do accents, but I have to be exposed to it. So, the Indian accent for me, it would be one of the more difficult ones to do without caricaturizing it, because it's too easy to do that. To do it accurately, and that's the thing about accents. You can do a caricature, But if you're going to do it accurately, technically you have to be on. He was in a movie I've not even seen, The Best Exotic Marigold Hotel.
Yeah. Oh, I love that movie.
There's a scene in the trailer where he is speaking with a very thick accent, but there's a way that he hits T's that an Indian accent hits. And he says, welcome to the Best Exotic Marigold Hotel. He says hotel like that.
Oh, great. Oh, my God, Chris. That was great.
Well, thank you, but I almost gave myself a stroke doing that. It's hard. To the Best Exotic Marigold Hotel. Because Indian accents rip through the word, get every syllable perfectly, and at a speed that an American would have real trouble with. And he hit that T like boom, like it's made out of granite. And I thought, that's one way to do that. I just thought, I just don't think I could for long. And so that accent, and I heard that.
It takes a lot of facility. It takes a lot of tongue dexterity.
And when I saw the trailer for season 6, and I could hear that Sheila and I are ready to dance, I thought, you know what? I don't even know if I could do that. That is so fast.
So fast. And it's so much fun. It's like verbal Olympics. You have to talk really fast.
Yeah.
You know? And you have to choose. Sometimes it's a ra, sometimes it's a ta, sometimes it's a da, sometimes it's a da.
Exactly.
And so you really, yes, exactly. See? Jeannie, you are on point. I don't know if it's Jean or Jeannie 308. Jean. Jean. Oh, I'm sorry, Jean. You are on point. It is the retroflexive R. It's the point where your tongue literally has to do this and flick the top of your it has to retroflex in order to make that sound. The retroflexive R, the retroflexive C, all of this. It's also in the Scottish accent, which is why when I was in college and we had our unit on all this Scottish playwrights, and I had to do a Scottish accent, everyone's like, why does she sound Indian? Like, because she looks Indian, but she's doing a Scottish accent, and you guys can't tell the difference.
Scottish is a bit easier for me to do, but you're right, because there it is. You're hitting it harder.
You feel it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's also more lateral. The Indian accent's a little bit more, the sound is a little more placed in your throat, but all of the precision comes from your tongue.
And also, that's just one Indian accent. There are only 1,300,000,000 people in the country, something like that. There's more than one accent.
1.5 billion.
Yeah, 1.5.
Yeah, of course, there's so many accents. And again, this is where I know people are like, oh, nobody talks like that no one said that to me on this, thankfully. But it's very easy for people to take offense when they hear something that they are not familiar with attached to something that they are familiar with. And what I would offer up to people is there are people of all shapes and sizes and sounds and backgrounds and experiences, and we really don't know who talks like what until they talk.
Yeah, but that's, people are used to hot takes. That's the old interwebs for you. So I know, but I just have to say, I am in love with language, with accents, with different cultures, and I try and absorb them as best I can. And when I heard that, it took me back. When I heard your trailer, it took me back to Dev Patel in that movie. And I thought, man, and it's just 2 reference points. It's a tiny bit of a tip of an iceberg of a vast culture. But so many people like myself only have these little ways in. And,
Sure, of course.
Yeah.
And I think it's important to acknowledge that they are ways in. Again, some people took offense to The Best Exotic Marigold Hotel because they said, oh, it's a caricature and I'm like, but do you realize how much of a way in it was for so many people? And also that cast is incredible. And the story that they told as kind of like romantic comedy, funny as it is, so much of it is so accurate. The racism in it, Maggie Smith's character not being able to accept an Indian person until the end of the movie as like another human being. Like that is a very, very real thing, because racism against Indians among the Brits was such a huge thing for so long. And during the British Raj, starting with the colonies, with them being a colony and going forward through history. And so people don't know about that. Everybody has to find their way in, whether it's through that story, through a game, through reading a book, whatever it is.
Yeah. Have you seen, I think it's The 100-Foot Journey? Is that what it's called?
My mom told me it's so good. My mom told me it's so good, and I feel so bad because I have a friend in it, and I still haven't gotten to see it, but I really do need to, and I have to put that on the list.
I
fact,
rented it.
That on our list.
Yeah, well, I rented. I ended up buying it because I love the food in it. I love the story. It's light. It doesn't go that deep, but it does have really important issues in it, and it's about French cuisine trying to exist across the street from Indian cuisine and the cultures that conjures up and how they sometimes can clash with each other. But the food, oh my God, you get yourself. I went out. I seriously went and got lamb biryani. And
I'm so proud of you.
And ate it in front of that movie. I thought, I've got to have Indian food while I watch this movie. It's impossible for me not to.
You know what's super fun? John, I think you're right. I think she was Tamil. I don't know if she was Tamil, but I know she was, I'm pretty sure she was South Indian.
Kamala Harris, yeah. We're going to learn more about it. Yeah, we're going to learn more about her, obviously.
I'm so excited.
Yeah.
I'm so excited.
Why don't we take a couple of questions for you then, because I don't want you to be too late. But I tell you what, the first question.
We're okay. We're okay. We have a little
time.
So
okay.
I'll let you know when I gotta run.
The first question from Top Cone, I remember, was just how welcoming has the rest of the Apex community and people who work on the game been for you?
Well, as you can tell from Chris, it's just been awful.
Yeah.
No, it's been amazing. You guys, it was so unexpected how lovely everyone has been from the very beginning. From the actual sessions where everybody was there, which is unusual for me. Like, it felt like there were like 15 people in there. Okay, there weren't 15, but there were a good 6-7 people at all of my sessions in person back when we were recording in person. And everybody was so excited, and they gave me little gifts when I came to my first session. And then you guys just took that ball and ran with it. I was so thrilled.
You're in our thread now.
And embracing. Yeah, I'm in the text thread, which makes me so happy because I'm all about group text threads. And little known fact to the world, but a little more known now, is that Miraj and I went to high school together and had the same drama teacher. So we have known each other for many, many moons. I think the last time we've actually seen each other in public was actually more years ago than I want to say, because when she retired. But yeah, so we knew each other. I had known of through other friends and stuff, and now I'm discovering that she's like, we were separated at birth. The two of us have been. I got her hooked on. I made her buy an Instant Pot to make her Indian cooking so much easier.
Really?
We've talked about recipes. We've been texting about the convention. She's amazing. Allegra and I went to the same college.
Really?
Yep.
Oh, so that's right. Northwestern? Was it Northwestern?
That's right. Go Wildcats. And so it's just been really, 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 really. And then obviously Darren and I know each other from Overwatch, and he's one of my favorites. Like he's one of the dearest. The thing I love about Darren so much is he has an indefatigable gratitude for life. Everything he wears his gratitude right here. Like it just pours out of him. And so when you're around him, you can't help but feel honored to be living the life that you're living, whatever it is. He just has that. There's just something so genuinely beautiful about him. I met him first, like in November of 2016, but I was doing a play in 2017 in Orange County. And to meet me, he drove all the way down to Orange County and spent some time with me during my intermission. And then he took another trip to come down and see the play.
Wow.
Like, I don't know if y'all know about LA to Orange County traffic.
It's not easy.
But that's not something you do for just anyone. And Darren made the effort because he also, like me, has an incredible love of theater. His wife is...
Yeah, he's got the background in it.
Yeah. And both of us do, So to be able to have that a mutual love for it is really, really special. So yeah, everybody has been utterly amazing. And then the response from the community has just been delightful. Look, I shared this on the stream the other day. I have my first piece of framed fan art that I have from my office.
Nice.
I love this.
That's pretty awesome.
Von Holda. Isn't it cool? And Von Holda sent me a version with a little thing for me specifically. So this is going up on my big wall of. I have so much fan art in this. I have an entire dresser full in the corner, and then it's also all over my walls and stuff. So I love art. I love fan art. I love art in general. I love how creative the gaming community is, and how I'm blown away by the generosity of people with their work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Here's a question from Jean, longer one, two-part question.
Mm-hmm.
Recently, I've come into contact with people who keep telling me things like Rampart isn't Asian, she's Indian, even though India is in South Asia. So my questions are, has Miss Bhimani had to deal with that herself? And how do I explain to people that Asia is more than just Japan and mainland China? Well, you can point to a map.
I have had to deal with that. I have absolutely had to deal with that in my lifetime.
Okay.
More times than I can count. How do I deal with it? Sometimes I just don't say anything because I feel like people are choosing the wrong battle.
Yeah.
Like if you're that, if it's that, if it means that much to you that you need to correct me on that, and I'm Indian and I know where India is and geography is a real thing, that I'm just going to let you have that moment. Yeah, it's a very strange thing. I do feel like right now, because of political correctness and because people want to be very specific about identifying people, and as time goes on, certain terms become offensive and certain things become more specific, and that is a good thing, but then sometimes it gets taken too far. It's really hard to tell. Yeah, I don't really know how, if you're not Indian, I'm not entirely sure how to deal with it, because I can deal with it by saying, like, I can just straight up say, dude, India is in Asia. If you want me to be more specific, I can call myself Indian and you can call yourself Japanese or Chinese or, you know, whatever. But I would like to think that I'm allowed to say Asian because South Asia is still Asia.
Well, a fact is a fact. It doesn't matter what a person thinks of it. I mean, as far as Asia goes, east of Turkey, and you're in Asia. You know, so
right, but you know, technically, so is Russia, and no one thinks of that as Asia, obviously.
Well, yeah, Russia's both. Yeah,
exactly. But that's not. Nobody calls Russians Asians. You see what I'm saying? So we can get caught up in the weeds. We can get caught up in the weeds there. Yeah. But I think it is not an argue. It is not a thing worth turning into a long argument. If someone wants to have a long argument about it, I think they are potentially defending identity, whether their own or someone else's, a little bit more because they have an underlying frustration that speaks more to their frustration than necessarily the accuracy of the term. If that
As they say, get them a magazine rack. They've got issues.
I've never heard of that.
It's an old one.
But yeah, because, that's happened. That happened to me. That happened to me that happened to me on the set of a major television show when someone's like, "Well, you're not Asian." I'm like, I have to drop this conversation right now because you're one of the leads. But
oh, really?
I am.
All right, you'll have to tell me the show after the stream.
No. It's not worth it. But it is. Okay. I understand that it is about. Look, everybody has their own relationship with identity. And who am I to mess with it? And if I don't need to fight that fight for me, then I don't need to fight that fight.
Right. Yeah. You know, pick your battles, as they say.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Let's do more.
Yeah. Somebody's saying,
shoot some plonkers.
Yeah, shoot some plonkers. Yeah. How much of her terminology, her lingo, is basically this sort of British Indian slang? I mean, is there a British Indian slang that is different than just a Cockney slang that you'd find?
Not so much. No.
Okay. Yeah, because that's something I know nothing about.
Yeah, there isn't in the writing of her. You know, Manny, for the most part, I think is responsible for most of the writing on her.
Okay.
And if not all of it, most of it. And definitely Cockney slang. Definitely all Cockney, a lot of Cockney rhyming slang. Mm-hmm. Which I first became familiar with in college because I did a show called Our Country's Good, which was all about, it's based on a true story about the prisoners who were then shipped off to Australia and kind of began Australia
as a penal colony. Yeah.
As penal colony, exactly. And there was a captain in this particular colony that decided to do theater with the prisoners to try to elevate their lives a little bit. And so I played a role that was originated by Cherry Jones on Broadway.
Oh.
And Lizzie Gordon.
Yeah.
And and that's where I first became familiar with Cockney slang. It's
Okay.
really it's crazy and it's fun and it's super dope.
Yes. Alexander is asking. See, Anjali asking. I just run words together, don't I? Yeah. Just wanted to ask, in the future, if Will Rampart get some native voice lines. That's one of the things I like in Apex, when legends speak their native language. Well, again, yeah,
I could tell you, but then I'd have to kill you.
Yeah.
I would imagine that she will. There are many seasons to come.
Mm-hmm.
There are many seasons to come, and I will be very excited to record them when they do come.
Do you have a facility with Hindi, or?
I do. I'm not. I wouldn't pretend that I speak it. I'm certainly not fluent. I speak Spanish well. I speak French well, and I'm learning Hindi. But I've spoken a lot of Hindi in movies and in other voiceover gigs and stuff like that. So I've got my Duolingo. I've got my Hindi coach, who's also a dear friend of mine, who's an actor.
Okay.
So and of course my mom.
Let's see. A lot of love you're getting here from Lil Deb Desire. And
thank you, Lil Deb.
Okay, here's one from Urban Phoenix Fox. With characters Symmetra and Rampart under her belt, is Miss Anjali hopeful that more cultural characters will appear in games like this?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's a done deal. And what I love so much about both of them, and this is what is exciting me and giving me great faith in the power of storytelling for our future world, is that both of these characters, while people tend to identify them as like the Indian character, they are not defined by their ethnicity. They are both very complex stories and complex people who happen to also be Indian. And one happens to be British Indian and one happens to be Indian, but they are a sum of so many different things that make them unique. And I think that as we continue in this vein of not just representation, but inclusion, which I think games are at the forefront of, even more so than TV and film and theater. Although theater has kind of been colorblind for years, but that's a whole different thing. Because I don't really believe in the term colorblind, so that's another story. But I am really, really thrilled that writers like Manny and Ashley at Apex and writers like Michael Chu at Overwatch have done such an incredible job of creating characters that are a product of all of the many things that make them who they are. So I think, yes, it is absolutely, I don't think that, it's not just that I hope that it's going to happen, I know it's going to happen.
Yeah,
that door has been opened and everyone is walking through it.
It is. You can't.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you can't put the toothpaste back in the tube, as they say. There's I grew up with D&D, Dungeons and Dragons. And
me too. I started when I was 8.
Yeah, I started when I was about 11 or 12. I mean, I'm a few years older than you, but I just saw a really fun documentary on Amazon Prime called Eye of the Beholder: The Art of Dungeons and Dragons, and you'll like it. Yeah, go watch it.
I'm putting it on the list I'm putting that right under the 100-foot journey. It's called Eye of the Beholder.
Yes, it mainly discusses the beginning of TSR and Dungeons and Dragons as a game and the art that attended it and how they came up with the art. And at the end of it, because they started bringing in newer artists that basically takes you into the teens, that I don't know when the documentary was made, probably in the last 2 or 3 years. So they talk about the fact that fantasy, especially D&D fantasy, is kind of stuck in Northern Europe. It just tends to be, or not just Northern Europe, but European. And so they began to integrate other races and not, like orcs now. No, like
other
people of
human
color.
races.
Yeah, people of color. And so in the latest, I think, player handbook, when they say human, it's actually a black woman. And they said, this is the point we're trying to make, is that we have to stop getting people to think, look, please don't make them blonde-haired and blue-eyed. We love them, but we've got 500 million of that. So as D&D is beginning to change its concept of fantasy art, it's not just one type of person interacting with these fantasy characters. It's the people you see around you in your everyday life. I hope the people you see around you in your everyday life. I mean, not everyone's lucky enough to live in a melting pot. If you're in a small town, maybe you just see people who look like you. But we have the internet, so get a taste of other cultures. And now that, like you say, you can't go back. It's here. There's nothing wrong with it being here, and I hope that people don't think it's too different or uncomfortable for them. So.
Oh, look, I mean, there are going to be some people who are not okay with the change, and then there are going to be other people who understand this is the world we live in now.
Yeah.
And while D&D has historically been associated with sort of medieval Europe,
yes,
it's also fantasy. So anyone can be anything. It's the same reason why, on Undeadwood, when I did Undeadwood with Critical Role, even though it's in the Savage Worlds Badlands game system, which is sort of built on a very specific time in America, it's also fantasy. So when we did the show, Kari Payton and I are both there as people of color, where it's not, especially for me, not an issue that the color of my skin is the color of my skin, because it's fantasy. And science fiction obviously is free to do whatever, because there's never been a specificity to a time period set on science fiction, because it's the future.
Yeah, it's different. So in other words, I think the people who consume this stuff don't all look like the people in it, and sometimes it's nice to say, hey, we're going to reflect some of the people that really enjoy this as well. Why not?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Jean just brought up an incredible new game that just came out too. I just heard about this as well.
Raji?
Called Raji.
Okay.
Yeah,
Raji.
and it's Raji is right. You were right. And it's a point and click game that is look, the Indian gods and goddesses, the pantheon.
You got a lot
Indian
of them.
deities, they're incredible. They were my superheroes growing up. I learned all about mythology and Indian history from these comic books called Amar Chitra Kathas. And I learned all about Krishna and Vishnu and Saraswati and all of these people through these amazing comic books. And so they were my superheroes. And the cool thing about that, much like the superheroes that we grow up with now in fiction, is that you see the hero in yourself the same way you see that aspect of yourself in a particular god or goddess. So the goddess of knowledge is not necessarily a being. You learn that that's a part of you. You learn that, and the same way we can do that with all of the heroes, so they're more archetypes that are within us. And I love that. I love that about mythology. I love that about storytelling. I love that about video games.
I have decided, after many years of exposing myself to just about everything I could read, is that gods, goddesses are anthropomorphizations of our hopes, dreams, and fears. It's a way that we can relate to the unknowable.
Look at the Greek gods and goddesses. I mean, we straight up know that, because particularly in polytheistic religions, the gods are fallible. Very rarely.
Especially if you're Zeus. Oh my God.
Yeah, right? I mean, that dude got around. And the fallibility of the various deities, for me, made them more accessible. I'm not a particularly religious person. My family said, this is our religion. Do what you want with it, because it's going to be your choice how you decide to make sense of this and how you decide to choose your spirituality. And ultimately, I saw it through Norse mythology, I saw it through Greek mythology, through Roman mythology, all of these things, that they're all aspects how we make sense of the world. So, and mythology is just that. It's stories. It's stories that we use to make sense of the world and to make sense of the human experience.
Yeah.
What is Urban Fox? That's right, Urban Phoenix. A playboy, a playboy. That was very gentle.
It's a very kind way to put it. Yeah, very kind way to put it. Let's see. Lil Deb Desire wants to know, will you try to play Rampart in Apex? Squad up with, okay, there's an open invitation.
Okay, yes.
Johnny and I will take you in.
I absolutely will try to play Apex. Here is the
Roger,
problem.
Yeah.
I am so bad at first-person shooters. And we got our PlayStation. My sweetheart, God love him, he got us a PlayStation specifically so that I could play Overwatch right before it came out. And I had never used a console before that. And then when we found out that you couldn't play it together at the same time, I didn't really spend as much time doing it, because the whole point was to do it together.
Yeah.
I don't, this whole, like the hand-eye coordination and paying attention, like it's so much for me. I'm an RPG girl. I'm a story game girl. Like I was Baldur's Gate, all that kind of stuff, a World of Warcraft kind of stuff. So I am really bad at these. Walking and looking in the right direction at the same time is hard enough for me when I'm playing these games. You guys are gonna have to be very, very gentle with me when we play, but I will absolutely play her. I also think her game style, her play style is probably more my jam, because I do like running in and shooting things or punching things. When I play Overwatch, I love playing Reinhardt. Because A, I get to hear Darren DePaul's voice, which just makes me happy.
Yeah.
And B, you get to run in and defend people and hit things. So I'm like, okay, if I'm going to do it, that's probably what I'm going to do.
In the fall, sometime in the fall, we're supposed to get crossplay, so people on PS4 can play with people on Xbox, can play with people on PC. That's the hope. So when we have that, we can make that happen. And in the meantime, you can find a way to dip your toe in it. Well, they have a training. I'll try to find some time. Yeah, they have a firing range.
Yeah, but that doesn't do anything until, like, all of a sudden there are other people, and I can't see what's behind. I don't understand. This is the thing I don't understand about these games. This is the thing I don't understand about these games.
You crazy kids.
No. The thing is, I don't have enough of a sense of the geography to know that, like, someone is on the roof behind me shooting down at me. Or I can't figure out on the screens, like, how can I tell where the hell I am?
Okay, let's say if you get shot at, a little red arrow will appear and tell you from whence the bullet came. So you can orient yourself that way.
But that's after the fact. I'm already dead by then.
Well, there's also a map that you have that you can keep in the corner of the screen. And trust me, my situational awareness in the game is horrible. I'm not very good at it. I've gone from being execrable to moderately incompetent. So I've climbed the ladder.
That's probably where I will, like, now I'll peak at moderately incompetent.
And I'm fine with that too. I'm not doing this because I'm great at this game. I'm doing this to open a window to this world for myself and for people who enjoy the game. And you are one of the lovely and amazing figures we see through that window. So this is the whole part of all this. Well, here's one from Salty Fish. A question for both you and me. I was wondering if both of you guys had a particular video game which you looked at fondly and is very fun to you. Basically, what's your favorite game?
I mean, I spent so many hours on the Forgotten Realms D&D series, Baldur's Gate, Neverwinter Nights, all that stuff. Way before, and it was straight up on PC back before, like, I would play it on my actual, like, Mac desktop back when I had a desktop. So super, super fond memories of that. And little did I know that, Jen Hale, my beloved friend, did a voice on that. And now I'm like, oh, wow, look at that. There you are. Miss Guinness Book of World Records doing all the games thing.
Yeah.
She's incredible. She's absolutely incredible. But yeah, so that's probably the game that, like, I reminisce about the most because I spent so many hours.
Really?
Like, so many hours. It was the only unwind I had. I remember in college, I would, a full day of classes, 3 hours, including 3 hours of dance classes, including a workout, including 3 hours of rehearsal, all of this. And then at the end of the day, around 9 or 10 o'clock, I would go back to my apartment. I would order a Dan's Dozen Cookies, which is this amazing place that would send you fresh, hot cookies. And I would sit and play Baldur's Gate or Neverwinter Nights or whatever game I was on at the time to unwind.
Wow.
It is such a dear memory of mine of, like, I worked hard and I earned the chance to do this today.
Probably wearing sweats and your hair in a ponytail, I'm guessing, and some sort of sweatshirt.
At the time, I'll tell you what it was. It was a flannel shirt it was a stretch pants, flannel shirt around my waist, and a T-shirt that was cut off around the collar with a sports bra. I haven't really changed much of my fashion since.
Yeah, if you're in, well,
in fact, I've had these pants. The pants that I'm wearing right now, I have legitimately had since 2001.
Wow, that's
a real story.
Okay,
it's been a minute.
Might want to go to a couple of
Right.
websites and get a backup pair just in case. Well, they could rip.
I have enough backup pairs.
Okay.
I mean, they're still here.
All right.
Until they're kicking.
They must be
Anjali
jeans.
is totally a nerd. You're right, Booty.
They
No,
must be
they're stretch pants. Look,
They're stretch pants.
They're stretch pants.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Well, hey, whatever works. My wife will just buy me new shirts after a few years, and she'll basically say it's time. Okay.
That's sweet. My husband did that to me for me for one birthday, where he was so sweet. He was like, I feel like you don't spend any money on yourself, and I want you to I want you to go out and take a shopping spree. But now he'll tell other people, he'd be like, yeah, I just got sick of her wearing the same clothes all the time, so I had to do it.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, either way, I win. So that's lovely. Right. Thank you.
Well, I mean, we have a couple of questions that have sort of been asked and answered. What's it like being in a game with Darren DePaul, because you've worked together before? We know how awesome Darren is, and he's
anytime I get to work with Darren, he's just a lovely guy. Even when I did the Doom one shot with Critical Role, and he was doing the voice of oh god, no, I can't remember him, the doctor in Doom, but he was doing that voice. It's always a joy to see him. Mm-hmm. It's so lovely. He's such a wonderful human.
Well, I tell you what, we'll take one more question because it's about one, and then I have to go. I have to let people know.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I gotta exercise. I gotta.
Oh, that's right. That's right. You gotta go pump some iron.
I gotta go. Today is.
You gotta go do the gun show. What? I don't do conventions. I do the gun show. What?
Look at those pythons on you, huh? Look at those steel
you
cables.
Guys, telling you, I've been kicking it in quarantine. I've been doing some work.
I'm gonna do a video that just shows people what I do to stay fit. Not like I'm telling everyone they have to do this, but I don't use weights. I haven't used weights in 15 years. You can get everything you need from a floor. Okay, a floor and a doorway.
Body weight.
Yeah, body weight's fine.
Body weight exercises are awesome.
Yes.
I think they're actually better than.
All right, let's. I do too, because of the freedom and flexibility you get. Let's grab one more. This is from Game Gone. Question to Anjali. Do you have any experience with Bengali culture that influenced you?
That is such a lovely question. And actually, I do. A few years back, I was on a show called Alex Inc. with my friend Zach Braff and Tia Sirkar. And Zach and I went to college together, too.
Okay.
And I played Tia's mother on the show. And because Tia is Bengali, they decided to make her character Bengali, and I had no experience with Bengali culture, and it's very different from Gujarati culture, which is my family. Mm-hmm. And so it was very, very cool. I just had a lovely time. I had to speak Bengali, which was very, very new to me. I'm trying to remember. We call them samosas in my region of India and many other regions, but I think they call them shingaras in Bengali culture. So we talked about that. And it was such a lovely thing because so many people hit me up both on the web and in person and saying, we've never seen a complex Bengali mother-daughter relationship on an American network television show before. And how special is that? And that really is one of my favorite roles that I've ever gotten to play because it's so usually there's kind of there are a lot of stereotypes about Indian mothers and aunties and whatnot. And this character, Joya, was a combination of, there's stereotypes because parts of this are true. And then there are other parts of this character that are much more, complex. Uh-huh. And there's a lovely monologue she has to inspire Zach Braff's character that is all about embracing the unknown, and you can find that on the internet. It's Ajana, what she talks about. Ajana, the unknown.
Well, thank you for that. Yeah, and this is something that I hope. I mean, ultimately, this is a video game, so we are not curing cancer. We are blowing people away virtually, and there's I mean, we're dealing with a lot of ordnance and guns and things like that, and it is a particularly violent game, but it has. In attendance with all of that, it has decided to take the step to include as many different cultures and races and sexual orientations and sexual identities as it can, because I believe they have taken the step of wanting to reflect the world in a much more diverse way. And diversity is this buzzword, and a lot of times I don't like it just for its own sake if it's just shoehorned into something. But I also see that you really do need to have a diverse way of looking at the world, and not just through the lens of where we're all from, but just intellectually speaking. You need to learn to look at a problem in many different from many different angles, and that is what critical thinking is. And so this game, while it is a first-person shooter battle royale, there is story behind it. They've taken care with the characters, and I hope that one thing this game might do is just get people who see the world one way to begin to open their minds up a little bit. And so the way
to be their way in, as we discussed earlier, to be your way into learning about other cultures.
Right. And I think they're trying to do it in a way that doesn't feel like they're just shoehorning it in there. They're just saying, hey, why don't we have a character from here? We've never done that before.
No, they're being very specific, and they're being very cool, and they're the level of respect while still being kind of kitschy and fun and playful. Is really like it's so much fun, and I am really grateful for it because I've been around for a hot minute. I've been doing this in as you see, in all different mediums. You know, been doing theater, been doing opera, been doing dance, been doing all this stuff for years and years and years. But where we are now in the world, I'm very excited about, and it's largely because of things like Apex Legends, where people are taking the initiative to open the door to other cultures.
I mean, I started my first professional gig in '92. All right, as a comic, as a stand-up comedian. All right, so I've been in this. I've been in this biz for a while, and the way the world saw it, the way Americans saw themselves, as opposed to the way they may see themselves now, has changed quite a bit. What I'm hoping is that some of those people that may feel uncomfortable with things just being more diverse, perhaps after a while they'll just get comfortable with it. Look, it's a hot tub. It's hot at first, and then you're going to get used to it.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I have to answer one question because it's come from two different people. Two different people have asked, am I familiar with the Sheila song in Bollywood? Of course I am. Sheila Ki Jawani? Who doesn't know Sheila Ki Jawani? My name is Sheila, Sheila Ki Jawani. That one? Oh my God. It's so good. It's so good.
I only know of one Bollywood song, because I've never seen a Bollywood movie all the way through, but luckily they make 5,000 of them a year, and so I can just find them everywhere. What a shock that a country with over 1 billion people would have a lot of movies. But the only one I know, as I read about it, it just went totally viral. It's Muni Badnam Huri, I think.
I don't know that one.
I'm going to have to send you a link. I'm sure I'm butchering the title, but it's actually a really fun, like Indian culture loves pop music. They love dance and pop music. I mean, they go crazy with it.
They mastered the art of the movie musical, and they never let it die. Here in America, we kind of let it fizzle out, and then I think Rob Marshall is really responsible, and Baz Luhrmann for bringing it back to the forefront.
Especially Baz.
But yeah, right. But although Rob Marshall with his Chicago, I mean, that was extraordinary. But yeah, no, Indians, we like to get down.
Yeah, I think it's Muni Badnama Hui, I think is what it's called. All right, I don't know it. I'm sure I don't watch a lot of Bollywood movies, but my mom watches everything, and then she tells me about it. And then Sheila Ki Jawani is just like, it's too awesome. Is it?
You got to look this up. It's a very sexy video. She's awesome. It's cool.
Okay.
And now we can let you go because you can work out, and I am a supporter of your health.
Well,
and
thank
I do
you.
have to go now.
You've been pushing your other appointment. So, Anjali, I want to say thank you. You are, as all my guests, you are lovely and amazing, and I hope to continue just this back and forth we have. And I'm glad we got to cover as much as we could. And you know, I look forward to when this all lifts and we can all be in person around each other.
Dude,
all the legends can get together.
I'm so excited. I've already committed to a party at my house with all of you, so I am ready. I am ready.